Welcome back, folks, once again to Talking Stocks with Dan the Stockman, where we review top public company executives to give us insight on where they are today and what the future may hold. I'm your co-host, George with a J, and without further ado, your host, the one and only, the brother from another mother, from Clearwater, Florida, Dan the Stockman.
Just for the people listening, to update them that the government of Quebec announced that they will expropriate our discovery, which we believe is about a 20 trillion cubic foot discovery.
Wow.
We drilled around 30 wells. Yeah, so 20 TCF of gas. That makes it like a Woodford shale or a Barnett, which was the beginning of it all. Like the Barnett was about 25 TCF also. So it really is a giant discovery, over 3 billion barrels of oil equivalent. And the government's announced that it's going to expropriate it from us. But anyways, yeah, so the government asked us that, well, okay, we'll let you produce it, but you have to have, quote unquote, a social license. So what social license? Well, nobody knows and nobody can tell you. But it's more or less that, they're saying we don't want to have any political problems for your project.
Gotcha.
Well, we went out and we got local farmers to support us, the local farmers unions to support us. We got local towns to sign on to a benefit sharing agreement. We got we got Native people. We got the local tribe, the Wolanek First Nations. They've signed on as a partner. We got the trade unions. So the Teamsters is a well-known union in the United States. The Teamsters are supporting our project. So we went out and did what we thought the government was asking us. Go get social license. Go get people to support your project. We managed to get the polling in Quebec that more than 2 to 1 Quebecers support development of our project. So having gone out and done all that, and then given the government the results of our social license work, we were expecting a different response than okay, well then we'll just expropriate you.
Because that is quite a list of support. Where do you think you're missing?
Yeah, I haven't even told half the story. So how we got the local support is that we understood that one of the big issues in Quebec it's a greener than green kind of culture there. People are proud of their milk and consent. So think about places like California, right?
Right.
And so we said, okay, we got it. You don't want emissions. You don't want toxic chemicals. You don't want too much noise. You don't want us to use water. You've made it clear that you're. In one sense, it's almost like you're saying you want a project with jobs and economic development, but you want a zero environmental impact. So we actually set out a goal. This was like I don't know what you call this. It's like a moonshot kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
We set the goal, if it's possible, to develop natural gas with zero environmental impact. So instead of starting from, here's where we are, how do we improve by 10%? We did a blank sheet of paper and said, let's start with zero impact. How do we get that? How do we develop and keep that? And of course, that's not literally possible, but that was a goal. And we managed to figure out, hey, we could develop it using hydroelectricity, eliminate every diesel generator, every diesel motor. We could use modern control systems, artificial intelligence, things like that predict and prevent leaks and things like that. And we could use vapor recovery. We could eliminate 99% of the emissions, which was an incredible breakthrough. We're actually not producing the emissions in the first place by using hydroelectricity.
Right.
Then went on there and said, hey, we could recycle all of the water, and we could use new technology that allows us to use wastewater, gray water, sewage water, salty water, like wastewater for our operations and well completions. And so that was an elimination of using fresh drinking water. And then the other thing is by using all those electric motors, we eliminate most of the noise. That was another important breakthrough.
Electric motors. Yeah.
Yeah, and with this new technology for well completions and drilling fluids, it's possible for us to use non-toxic, and actually our ultimate goal is fully biodegradable fluids for all of our drilling and completion operations. So we got to the point where it was a near zero impact project. This is how we got the Teamsters, the First Nations, the towns, the farmers all on side. They went, so you're telling us we can have all the economic benefits, we can share the benefits, and the impacts are going to be world-leading, lowest impact in the world for a new product. We said, yeah, and we're willing to do a pilot and prove that what our engineering works.
I mean, what do you think, Dan? What's your take on it?
This really is one of the biggest stories in the country as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is a hot button issue. It's a national news story, and I think it's only going to grow. They've spent, my understanding, if you look at the public filings, it's over, call it $150 million have been spent. They did everything the government requested of them to do. So again, yeah, I wanted to get some understanding. One of my goals today was just to help get a better understanding for myself and the audience, just a scale of the amount of oil in the ground and gas in the ground, because we love this concept of optionality as smart speculators. We have somewhere along the lines, Michael mentioned earlier, 20 trillion cubic feet equates to, call it 3 billion barrels of oil equivalent. So then when you look at their assets in Jordan, Utah, and Alberta, let's call it leverage. That's what optionality implies, is leverage. And Questerre offers leverage to 4 billion barrels of oil equivalent in the ground. Now, when you look at that market cap of only $77 million, that equates to about, get this, 2 cents per barrel. I ran the numbers twice just to double check. So, I mean, this is the optionality.
2 cents
above ground sells for over $100 a barrel
all day
via Questerre. The stock is QEC again on the Toronto. You get exposure to oil, a barrel of oil for less than 5 cents a barrel in the ground.
Amazing.
So does that sound about right, Michael? I mean, that's how my simple mind thinks about speculating on some of these commodity companies. Tell us, you mentioned before, just this is a true technology that you've been working with to do this at a net zero. It's even better than solar and wind can claim to be, in terms of if people want to be serious about the science.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one thing that I just think it's a breakthrough project on the environment. And I've been doing some speeches and conferences. And of interest, by the way, our business with Red Leaf down in Utah, I mean, the University of Utah has leading edge carbon recycling projects. This is happening in other places besides where we are in Quebec. Like, it's happening in Alberta, it's happening in Utah, it's happening in other places in the United States, it's happening in Norway. People are coming up with dramatic improvements in the emissions profile of oil and gas. I'm 100% convinced that we're going to transform oil and gas into a low emissions product. So in other words, we'll transition off the emissions without having to transition off oil and gas. That's what I mean by energy transformation. Using something out of refineries, like coker drums, which is a part of a lot of refineries. In refineries, if you get the sludge or heavy oil that's left over at the end of the process, they'll often put it in a coker drum and coke it. So what we're doing is, instead of putting that sludge into the coker drum, what we're doing is putting this rock into the coker drum. So think about it as a refinery, where instead of putting crude oil into the refinery or heavy sludge oil into the refinery to turn it into gasoline or diesel or other products, what we're putting in is the actual rock, which is full of organic material, and that organic material underneath turns into oil and gas, and then what we're left over with is the mineral, like the mineral part of the rock. And what's interesting about it is that there's trillions of barrels of oil in this kind of rock around the world. And we've already tied up leases for about 1 billion barrels in Utah and about 7 billion barrels in Jordan. So if our process works, it's even bigger than Quebec. Even bigger.
Even bigger. Michael's going big. He likes big. Big Binnion. Michael, you're the man. If you look at the volume, so the volume's definitely low. And with some of these stories, where do you see some of the stuff starting to come into play, especially like with what you have in Utah?
They're just finishing the validation of our technology. We expect that report will be done shortly. That, I think, will give us something that we can go and start to look for partners and raise some money on to move forward with that project. Because the other thing that's happened in Utah is that we've been able to, as part of our project, acquire 7,600 acres of land, like just beautiful surface land, normal title land. But we've been able to create, and it's grandfathered, air emissions permit for a 40 to 45,000 barrel a day refinery for the production from our billion barrels project.